This is a CW Spiral, a podcast run by two Barchies and a Bughead. We're your hosts, Sabrina Reed,
Michael Patterson,
and Reed Gaudens,
bringing you history about the network, the latest news, and in-depth spoiler-filled discussions of some of our favorite shows on the CW. I'm a little somber because this pod is all about the Flash, because it ended on Wednesday and it's just bittersweet. Michael, I'm going to give you the floor, though, because this show, we both care about it, but this is really, really your show.
I mean, we knew it was coming, and when the cancellations came out, when the announcement that the show would end came out, we knew this day was coming at some point. But even as tough a time we've had with season 9, you still didn't want this day to come, because that was it. That was the end of the era. And I mean, as soon as the credits rolled on, and I sat for a few moments, it was like, wow, that's it. Because the Flash has been with us for so long. It feels like one of those constants that's never really going to go away. Every time you see one of those big outlets post about it, people are like, OMG, is that still on? OMG, I didn't realize it ran for so long. And it's true. Whether you were watching it or not, it's been a constant of television. It's been a constant of genre. It's been a constant in all of our lives for so long. It's just wild to think of a world without it, because this superhero, this era of television and movies, the Flash was a big part of that. Because who knows if we'd have these Marvel shows now if the Flash wasn't such a success, if the Arrowverse wasn't such a success. So I know we have mixed thoughts on the season and mixed thoughts on the finale, but I think it's good to kick off by just acknowledging what a legendary show this was. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for the Flash. So yeah, it's going to be wild to think of a world without it. We're not quite there yet. We still have the finale to get through and review, but it's even been such a regular presence on this podcast. It's just, it's weird. It's weird to live in a world where we're going to have to move on from that, because it's been so long. We got used to losing so many CW shows, but this didn't feel like one of them that we would. But yeah, I'll save my rambling for later, because we have a lot to talk about. But what an era it's been for the Flash, and I can't wait to talk about it one more time.
I know, I cannot believe it had been on since 2014. It just feels like it's one of those shows that it just sticks with you the entire time. So now that it is done, that it's finished, and just I felt like obviously can't be a forever show. It's not a soap opera, but we've lived in it. We've talked about it. We've been discussing it as a community, as a Flash fandom for 9 years. And so to not have that, to be when we get to the fall and there's no Flash, or we get to the midseason, because they did have to move it that one time, and there's no Flash. It's we go forward without Barry Allen and Iris West and Caitlin Snow. And I know we've been without Cisco for a while, but even not having him, and I feel like it's not hit me yet. It's hit me because I've cried, but I feel like it's one of those wave things where I'll be fine, and then I'll get misty about the community it created and the show itself, and all the opportunities to talk with people about superheroes on the CW, and being able to playfully fight about which Arrowverse show was better, and always being obviously the Flash. It's just, I don't know. I'm not quite settled in it not coming back again.
Mm-hmm. It changed the world for this genre. There's no doubt about that. And I always say that I feel like it changed my life as well. I know we've had a love-hate relationship with over the most recent seasons, but I've no problem telling someone that The Flash is my favorite TV show of all time. It's just so pivotal in my life and so many other people's lives. It started conversations. It changed the game in so many ways. And yeah, so much of this world we're in right now, the superhero loving world, wouldn't be the same without the impact that the Flash had made. And as the show goes off, I think it's important to acknowledge that, because the show might not be with us as much, but that impact it made will always be with us.
Wait, also, hi, I'm here. Is it your favorite show of all time? Is it a one singular show, or is favorite show of all time a tier?
Yeah, it's a tier. Okay. Smallville was in there, Supergirl was in there, The Flash was in there, Arrow in its heyday was in there. But yeah, I feel like this, I'll just say, this Arrowverse DC multiverse, that's my favorite TV show of all time. That never ends. But yeah, that's it's wild to think of a world without it. You got used to the idea of Supergirl ending, you got used to the idea of The Flash ending, but you never really got used to the idea of this whole universe, multiverse ending. And I don't want to take away from the end of The Flash because it's such an important entity on its own, but it is extra bittersweet that the end of The Flash means the end of the Arrowverse, because again, that was something that really changed the game.
Sure. And there was a tweet last night where someone said the last light of the Arrowverse just went out, and I was gutted. Like that was like probably, what is that, number 3 of teariness before the sob came after I read Candace Patton's post on Instagram, which was beautiful. But to launch into the finale, Reed, as an out of context viewer, how did you feel about it?
How did I feel about it? There was a lot going on that I didn't understand. Obviously, I don't know why I said that. But it felt, how do I say this without coming off ignorant? There was a big portion of the episode that didn't feel to me like the ending of the titular character's story. There was a big chunk of the episode that felt very much centered on, I'm not sure who he was. I think his name was Eddie, but I feel like he was referred to as like 8 different names in the episode. So I was like, who was Eddie? Who was Thawne? I thought that was his last name. I was confusion the whole episode about who everybody's name was. But yeah, I've seen you guys say that it felt like a season finale, and like it was. I mean, it's the end of a season, but it's also the end of a series, and it didn't, to me, feel celebratory until maybe the final act. And I mean, that's fine. But yeah, there were certain scenes where I'm watching it and I'm like, it didn't really feel it. I guess my expectations of what a series finale of The Flash would be, I don't know what that is, but I thought it would be maybe lighter in different parts, or the action would be slightly more focused on the Flash, but there was so much happening. But I mean, I think it all ended up working for me as an out of context viewer. And I also want to say, I've said this a million times on this podcast, but I think we should normalize out of context series finale watches. Like, I just love being nosy and being like, ooh, I've never watched the show a day in my life. I want to see how it ends. I like to see how shows end, like long running shows. I think it's fascinating to see what the choices that they make. I don't know if there's something that I said that you could grab onto. I just rambled.
No, I think you're totally right. I feel like this was very much a season ending, although it tried to use some veteran characters to create or at least manipulate that sense of nostalgia you're supposed to feel in a series finale. I do have an issue that it felt like there was a lot of good in there, but it felt like we only got there in this episode, and the moments leading up to it didn't really set the stage for that. Of course, I think the big nostalgic thing was that they brought back all the villains, and that having Eddie is now the avatar for the negative speed force, and his code name is Cobalt Blue. So yes, they were calling him Eddie, they were calling him Cobalt Blue, they were calling him the negative speed force.
I was like, is this not the cop I knew in season 1? I'm confused.
So the scene with all the evil speedsters in the negative speed force at the start, so much exposition was working overtime to catch us up on who everyone was and why they were there. And I think that kind of set the tone for the finale, because I feel like it was such a standalone episode. Exposition, battle sequences, it all felt rushed into that first 20 minutes so that they could finally do the last 20 minutes be series finale like. It made sense that it was Eddie that was the villain, since he was such a major character in season 1, but I feel like they could have done this storyline any time, and it didn't need to be the final season story, because it didn't really come off as final season to me either. It was amazing seeing all the speedsters, but before we move on from this point, my big issue is, and I know they did it in the final season of Buffy, Reed, with the Uber Vamps as well, in that when you bring in all of those godly threats, suddenly they can be defeated like that because they're not the main threat of the storyline anymore. And Buffy did a far better job, because at least they put up a fight. Good God, Allegra should not have defeated the almighty Reverse Flash. I'm sorry, that should not have happened.
That happened so quickly.
Very
It did.
quickly. I do buy Keon being able to defeat Zoom because now we know that she's a god. We don't know what that means or what her powers are, but she was literally the only non-speedster person on that team who could have stood any chance against those people because she's a goddess. Allegra, the moment she would have thought about Thawne shut up, much less as being able to say the words Thawne shut up, Thawne would have snapped her neck. But of course, plot armor. Uh, Chester, don't even know what he was doing there. Chilblain showed up to look pretty with his open jacket and stand there with gauntlets, didn't do a thing.
Mean, you said it. I appreciated that much.
I mean, we got what we wanted from him, but like he just shadowed Keon the whole time. And then Cecile and her one-liners defeated Godspeed. Now, Godspeed is a flop. He should not have been on that team in the first place. He's got the most dramatic voiceover. He's such a one-note character. Do not put him on the same team as Avatar and Zoom and Reverse Flash. That was a bad idea. But I just have an issue with all these iconic big bads that we each spent 22 to 18 or in Godspeed's case 4 episodes trying to deal with. They could just be defeated like that by people who aren't speedsters. I thought that completely let it down. I know we got second of the Reverse Flash, but I still feel like he should have been the big bad in the final season. And we should not have done that meditation red ball thing, whatever last season was. That was not necessary. We should have saved Thawne for this season. Because seeing him get swatted away like that by people far below his level of attack, his level of power, that should never have been a thing. But I get it. It just felt like that battle was awesome, but it almost did too much in such a short space of time just to get it out of the way, if that makes sense.
It does. My brother and I were talking about this, and we were trying to conceive of a way where it'd be plausible. And so the idea we had was that they weren't actually the speedsters we knew, but recreations made by Eddie that he had to split his powers through. And then that would make sense for why they were so easily defeated, because generally that is what happens if you have to spread your powers out. They are the lesser versions of actual speedsters who were very powerful and took entire seasons to defeat, or in Reverse Flash's case, like literal seasons. Like he kept coming back and back and back. And I was like, I wish they had done that because it makes much more sense. Because we also did some type of leveling up of powers that we had not seen. And that might have been because they had reserved the budget for the series finale. Because Allegra's light show, we haven't seen that this season. Like she exploded out. It was like watching X-Men. I was not prepared for the amount of energy that just blasted out of her. Cecile, I guess we had seen her do something crazy like last episode. And so her doing her thing made sense. XS defeating Savitar, I liked. I thought it was like especially because he's like, I'm gonna kill you like your mom. I was like, I feel like we're not paying attention to how she's a speedster and Iris wasn't, but you know what? You learned your lesson. I like the sequences when I turn my brain off. If I unplug my brain, like it just was really cool and really nice. But like when you think about the story, same with Chester surviving that amount of lightning.
See, I'm glad we brought that up. I was going to ask what you thought about that. And once again, I have to address Cody, our friend Cody, directly. The fake out death, I couldn't get on board with it. He was dead for so long and she was mourning him. And then he's just like, and I'm like, no, not that I wanted him to die, but I was just like, it was so dramatic and it wasn't explained how he survived.
I mean, they used a keyword. Chunk. Chester is a chunk.
Yeah, well, what is that? Can we...
Sweetie, that's a sentence I never thought I'd say in my life, and I never want to say it again. I don't know what it means. I know the character in the comics, his code name is Chunk, but they actually tried to specifically come up with a scientific reason that he is a being called a chunk and that he might be a metahuman. Okay. When Chester first debuted, he had the powers of a black hole, and by having the powers of a black hole, it means he accidentally ended up turning himself into a black hole. Still don't know how that's possible.
But didn't he say that in this episode? Like it was the first time he was hearing it about the black hole thing?
Yeah, so somehow that's translated to giving him powers, some kind of metahuman residual powers. But I still, like, Barry is a metahuman, he can still die. I don't know what being a chunk means and how it brings you back to life.
It's such a funny word.
You know what I mean? I don't get it.
No, I felt like it was a scientific acronym that I just was not willing to rewind to hear again. It just didn't... you could have just had shot him once and that would have been fine. And we've been like, okay, yeah, because people survive being struck by lightning. Fine. He survived that blast. Perhaps Reverse Flash was just being egotistical and didn't put that much power into it. I would have accepted that. But the idea that like it was the power of Allegra's tears that brought him back. She didn't even try to resuscitate him. She just cried over his chest.
The power of love.
And then that camera move around them, I was like, we're wasting story time.
Yeah.
This is their third circular kiss like that. Like, we don't need it.
And it didn't even have the nice music this time. I was like, why are we wasting 30 seconds on them in the series finale? I'm like, okay, I'm sure they can amount to 30 seconds of screen time in the series finale. That's fine. But we literally had a dead 30 seconds where we were just panning around them. And then the finale had a lot of lines from the show's run embedded in the episode to make us all feel nostalgic. We saw it when Eddie was punching Barry and he was saying, I always win, in the same way the Reverse Flash said, I always win in the season 1 finale. But that one really irked me. They had Allegra and Chester say, you came back to me always, which is Barry and Iris's iconic line from season 4. Yeah, no, they will never be West Allen. I'm sorry. No cause for that, no need for that. I think it irked more people than it impressed.
As an out of context viewer, I was not moved.
Yeah,
I'll just say that.
As an in context viewer, I wasn't moved.
Because there's just some in a series finale, you want to focus on like the big relationships, the moments that are really going to pull at your heartstrings, the conversations, especially in tense situations, that just have you like trying to reach for some tissues or on the edge of your seat. And I felt like with the OCs, the original characters, it just was not there. They were writing it, but it just was like, this really shouldn't be about them. This should be about the characters we've known this entire time. And I know they tried that with Eddie. I really wish this whole plot had actually happened when Iris was moving forward in her life with Barry, like around the time where she would have been getting married to him, rather than we are years down the road into their marriage and Eddie is back in season 1. And so then therefore we have to be back in season 1. But it was interesting seeing him clearly not cheats to the wind, because that's not the metaphor, but the man was gone. Like, he just arriving with the flowers in her delivery room. I was like, sir, she is about to give birth. She's like in the middle of contractions. You need to leave. Like, this is not the stress that she needs right now. I did love seeing Protective Barry again, because he was like, don't come near her. So I thought those sequences were interesting. I appreciated Iris's characterization in this episode when it came to Eddie, rather than the previous episode or 2049. Iris didn't really have a realistic reaction to Eddie's appearance. And this Iris was like, what are you doing here? You good? What's happening? Like, I'm in labor, but what's going on right now? Like, so I liked that. And I liked the concentration on her being like, you know what, Barry, go whip tail. Like, I will be here getting ready for Nora, but you go handle the situation. I will say, though, I did not like the last standoff. I think it is between Eddie and Barry. I think this might just have to do with a difference of opinion when it comes to what we mean when we say balance. Because the idea that the negative speed force has to exist, and therefore Barry has to coexist with this negative entity, there just was not enough room or dialogue or explanation to make that make sense. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously, like, positive and negative do live together in the world. We know that. However, coexist how? It is an evil force. Mm-hmm. So therefore, it is going to tap into evil around the rest of the world. Just because they shook hands at the end and Eddie was like, we're not always going to agree. It's like, you're never going to agree. You are an evil embodiment of what's terrible in the world. And that is what fuels you and fuels whoever decides to use your force. They didn't try to say that the negative speed force had a different type of capacity in the earth. They just told us balance is necessary.
Mm-hmm. And I get the conversation that balance is necessary, but I completely agree. If the crystal or the whatever it is, the blue cobalt blue thing is what created the Avatar, and Eddie destroyed it, why is Eddie still the Avatar? If the negative speed force has the power to resurrect a man from the dead, just so it can be his Avatar, why did the negative speed force not bite back and kill said man for turning against it? Why is even though Eddie was definitely manipulated by the negative speed force, but why is he suddenly like, we're never going to see eye to eye, even though him and Barry did see eye to eye in the past? I feel like I get the baseline of what they were trying to accomplish was fine, but yet again, the finale had not enough time to get through it. So we just had to suspend our disbelief and go, oh, I guess that's how it done. The Flash talked down yet another villain in his final ever episode instead of epically defeating him. Sure, whatever.
Mm. I hate that it's like a shrug sort of situation. That it's just like, fine, this is what happened. And I only somewhat feel that way about the first part of the finale. The second part of the finale did the thing. We had the same structure that a lot of shows do, which we had a lot of action in the beginning, and then by the last half of the episode, we're moving towards like the brighter day. I mean, it's literally entirely too bright in the hospital room. Like I'm just blinded, but I mean, gorgeous lighting, but still blinding. And the positiveness of what came from this battle and what is happening in Barry and Iris's life with Nora being here. And I loved the delivery scene. I thought it was so beautiful and moving, and that little spark between Barry and Iris, that one last time that looks just like Nora's lightning. I thought that was a lovely touch.
It was. That's when the emotions started hitting me. I was like, okay, now it's starting to feel like it's ending, because that's probably the only like long running storyline that ran through the whole series that was addressed in the finale. The rest of it was just that a new world graphic novel storyline. But this felt like series finale material. So that was beautiful. And yeah, you're right. The call back to the lightning really got me. I was like, oh, because that was such an epic moment in season one. And then, of course, Nora being born, and Candace and Grant's acting together. I wanted a little bit more time just spent on that moment, because it felt like we were finally heading towards the end. And this is an end I envisioned for the Flash. This is an end I would have been very happy with for the Flash. And it was a very, very, very beautiful moment. And it did feel earned, even though a lot in the finale did. And that was one moment that genuinely felt earned. And yeah, as a Flash fan, that was probably the most fulfilling moment of the finale for me. It was lovely.
Just absolutely gorgeous. As was the flashback scene, one of the flashbacks through West Allen's story that was happening when Joe was singing to Nora. I thought that was lovely. I was like, oh, not them really getting me in the heart now. I wasn't emotional before, but I'm emotional now. I adored, what is that, 20 minutes of the episode? And the rest of it, I just like accepted. Like this is the end of the road for them. I don't even know how to describe what party that was, but it was just a welcome Nora party. I thought was sweet. Once again, we lingered a little bit too long on Chester and Allegra. I did not care that they were dancing. Move on. And then of course there was the long time coming proposal between Joe and Cecile, which I don't know what it is about the Arrowverse and stealing other people's thunder, but we need to stop that. They had all season for that man to propose, and they chose during Nora's party.
One of my least favorite TV writing tropes is when the dialogue, without doing so, speaks directly to the audience. Like when she was like, it's about time. It made sense in that room, but it was also kind of like breaking the fourth wall without looking directly down the barrel of the camera. I don't know. That just personally grinds my gears when TV shows do that. I'm like, yeah, we know, we get it. And I don't know, how did that feel for as like a longtime viewer? Was that kind of like, ugh?
Yeah. Sabrina said it all. No, I feel like I don't have a problem with the scene itself, other than maybe the slightly cringy dialogue. I don't have a problem with the scene itself, but we had 12 other episodes this season. We could have done that, and we had the season 8 finale last year when Barry was busy meditating and Joe West was still a full-time part of the show. We could have done it then. This was not necessary. One of my favorite things about The Flash has been how it kind of invented the post-credit scene for television, in that how the story would end, you would see the Flash logo, and then you'd have a little teaser at the end of it. We don't see that in superhero TV. Arrow didn't do it. Legends of Tomorrow didn't do it. That was a very unique thing for the Flash, for the Arrowverse. Supergirl didn't do it. So if you think of it like that, Joe and Cecile technically got the final scene of the Flash, because that was what happened before the title card came on. I know we got the little post-credit bit with Barry running in the camera, but why did Joe and Cecile get to end the main narrative of The Flash?
That
I
was
know.
jarring to me.
It
You know what I
was to
mean?
I
me
was like,
too.
that was the end. I'm not familiar with the Flash post credits situation. I was surprised they did it for the series finale.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. I screamed at the TV. I was like, we're sitting there watching, and I'm like, I know we're not ending the Flash. It was Cecile and Joe's proposal. I know that's not how. Look, the elevation of my voice was going higher until we came back. I was like, oh, okay, let me calm down and watch this because I was like, violence was chosen, and I am mad about it. But when we did get the post credit scene, I was like, oh, okay, ooh, I'm good. I did think it was very sweet that we end up with Barry telling Dora to believe in the impossible. My heart was so warmed. He was lingering there for a bit long. I was like, can we walk over to Iris? Because one person I haven't been able to see with her baby that much since the baby was born is Iris. Walk over to your wife, please. And he did. So I felt better about that. And then that ending sequence made not a lick of sense, but it was gorgeously shot. Like it just truly was. I don't know why Barry decided that he was going to just give powers to random people, and without asking them first. He
Mhm.
just ran. But I do know, isn't that thing he was running on? Isn't that from when they tested his speed the first time in
Yeah,
season
the
one?
Ferris airfield. Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
That was a lovely. That was a nice little subtle throwback. I have a lot of thoughts. Were you going to say something, Reed? Because I know I ramble and I don't want to take away from whatever you're going to say.
I'm excited that we got to this part because this is I messaged you guys after I watched. I was like, I have questions. This is where my questions are. So how do I feel like I have 8 different questions, but they can be phrased to one. So okay, wait. Do they know what happens in the future? Because I feel like they do, because their children have been in the show for a very long time. So does he already know that he gave these powers to these 3 randos?
I don't think so. The thing is, the whole point of this season is that they know what comes in the future, but they only know certain moments. They don't know all the in betweens. So they knew Iris would win a Pulitzer at one point. They knew that their children would arrive. They knew that Bart would come along at some point as well. But they don't know about all the in between. And that's what Iris was trying to tell Barry at the start of the season. You can't keep mapping her life out as, and this is when this happens, this is when this happens. So the whole point of the season is that they create their own future. I don't think it was executed very well. But so back to your point, I don't think he knew that this was going to lead to the creation of these 3 specific speedsters.
Okay, follow up, like prong 2. So in the voiceover, he's saying to Nora, and this is a bad paraphrase, he's saying something like he wants to make the world better, safer for her, right?
Yeah.
Something to that effect.
With more togetherness and balance and by sharing what they've got.
So since he knows his adult daughter, I don't know how that all works. If she's from the future, different timeline, I have no idea. This is where the question comes in. But wouldn't he know that the future isn't safer or better because she's come and joined them to like save the world and stuff? See, it was like I don't have an issue with it. I was just confused as a non-viewer. I was like, wait, the things I've heard on this podcast and things I feel like I know about the show, the 1 + 1 is not equaling 2 for me in this moment.
I think that goes back to the Flash has always had a different view of crime fighting than like any other crime fighting show. Arrow's future was dark and grim, and the fact Oliver saw the fact that his daughter needed to be a hero as a failure because it meant that his work was not completed. However, over on the Flash, are like, it's sunny all the time and we get to fight people with superpowers, yay. So Barry loves the idea that his daughter is like a superhero in the future because it means they're still doing good. And on paper I get that, but the Flash has always had a different outlook. They feel like if they're out there using their gifts to help people, even if it's fighting crime, it doesn't matter if the world's a dark place with crime in it because they're going to fill it with their bright lightning and make it a better place. So, I mean, you have to suspend a lot of disbeliefs. It's hard to believe sometimes these shows are set in the same universe. But yeah, I have issues with the logic here because it's a nice spin. Remember, we said months ago that the fans wanted Barry to become the lightning that struck himself in the first season. So it would be like a full circle moment. We didn't like that ending because it meant that Barry Allen would spend the rest of his existence as a lightning bolt and he would not be with his family. So we didn't like it. So this is a nice little spin on that. And then he became the lightning to launch 3 other people instead but he still gets to have his family at the same time. Um, I'm a firm believer that a superhero show should always end with a triumphant shot of that superhero doing whatever it is they do. So Batman watching over Gotham City, Supergirl flying through the skies, whatever. Perfectly happy with the final scene of the Flash running, and that smile made me very, very emotional. That is exactly what the final shot of the Flash should have been. But some of the logic there with him creating the three other speedsters doesn't exactly line up. So he just literally inflicted his powers on three people. The whole first season was about the fact that Central City was infected by metahumans and superpowers, and that at least three-quarters of those metahumans were not using their powers for good. Barry literally could have created three evil speedsters there because of the speed force that landed on a bad guy. So I don't know why you would take that risk into your own hands and think, I'm going to create three new superheroes when it could very easily have turned out to be three new bad guys. I guess it's the fact that the positive speed force would have a positive impact. But I feel like that's a little bit of a stretch. Savitar used the positive speed force and he was still a villain. So I still, you know what I mean? I feel like the logic doesn't add up there. Like Sabrina said, if you turn your brain off, it's a perfectly serviceable ending. But the first three seasons of The Flash were very complex that you had to have your brain on. So I don't like the fact that the show's turned into, oh, if you turn your brain off, it's all right.
Were they trying to plant the seed for like a spinoff, like The Flashes or something?
I think if this had been 5 years ago, they would have been. But there's nowhere for that show to live because these aren't main characters that no one would watch. Not enough people would watch that if it wasn't on the CW. Um, but I do feel like these are maybe storylines that either Eric Wallace was never going to do and he wanted to do them now because you don't actually have to dramatize them if you have a big fancy cliffhanger for them. Or they are storylines he wanted to do, it never quite got the chance to. So we just wanted to show them there. I will say, I remember back when I was writing for different websites growing up through my early 20s, and The Flash was the biggest show on the TV at the moment. Everyone wanted Max Mercury to appear in The Flash. Everyone's like, is this the season where Max Mercury shows up? So the fact that we finally had one of those speedsters turn out to be Max Mercury in the end, that was quite a fulfilling moment. Not exactly what we'd hoped for the character, but I feel like we said this is what Eric Wallace has been doing. He's been trying to tie up every loose end that the Flash has ever had. And now it's definitely produced varying results because, sorry, not all of them have worked out that well. I feel like this is another one of them. But I mean, at least he addressed them. It was nice to see these three new speedsters introduced because they are three iconic DC speedsters. I just feel like a little bit of logic didn't add up there, if you know what I mean.
No, but it's strange though because it's like things could work if there were tweaks. Like we
Mm-hmm.
just had a big battle. What if Barry's powers were dispersed without his control and his powers were
Yeah.
shared in some capacity? And so the final scene should still be him running. But before that, him checking on these three people because he felt that they were a part of the Speed Force now. Because we all know that he's had lines over the seasons where he has said he can feel when someone's in the Speed Force or someone's using the Speed Force. So why wouldn't he feel three other individuals that got his powers
Mm-hmm.
just running
Yeah.
around?
That's a good point. So we wouldn't have had to actually choose them, but he'd know they existed. See, that would have made far more sense. I'm sorry. I know they wanted Barry to have his big moment, but like he literally inflicted his powers on three people, changed their lives. And I know maybe being a superhero is a good thing, but like maybe they didn't want that life. I just feel like the Barry Allen we know wouldn't have taken that kind of consent away from somebody. So whatever, it's a perfectly serviceable ending that makes you think, oh, the stories continue. And I do appreciate that because I hate series finales that have to end the story. um, we all know Oliver Queen died at the end of Arrow, but like Supergirl, the adventures continue off screen. Batwoman, the adventures continue off screen. Legends, if they ever get out of that prison, I'm sure the adventures continue off screen. And now we know the Flash's adventures continue off screen. I do love an uplifting series finale, and those last few moments were beautiful. It's just a bit of the logic in that.
Mm-hmm. But the last scene, though,
Mm-hmm.
perfect way to end the Flash.
Exquisite. Exquisite.
Gorgeous. But before we move to Superman and Lois, it's just The Flash was a show that we had for 9 years. I feel like even though we acknowledged it earlier, I want to say thank you to it. I feel like to the actors and the creators and the crew and everybody, it just is a really important. Not me getting emotional. It was a really important show for a lot of people, and it helped people make friends, and it helped them to really get into, I don't know, communicating with others and being able to express their opinions and their artistry and fight for the things they wanted. I adore Candace Patton, and I feel like as a young woman who was coming of age when the show was on, she has been an inspiration for me. And I am always going to love Iris West, and I'm always going to love what Candace did in the entertainment industry by deciding to stay and holding the door open and being a guiding light. I'm going to stop here because I might cry. So we're just going to cut it off there.
No worries. No, I agree completely. She was a game changer. Um, what an incredible performance she gave throughout those 9 seasons. This show has been a constant in my life, and I feel like one of the worst parts of getting older, I say that I'm not even 30 yet, but one of the worst parts of getting older is seeing things that have guided you throughout your life, and then the end, and you're like, oh, I just have to carry on. But at least we know the show will always be with us. I think when a show goes on this long, it does become a part of the furniture. It becomes a part of people's lives in a way that even if it's not on, it'll always be with them. I know it's changed so many people's lives out there in terms of representation, storytelling, seeing themselves reflected on screen, and then just obviously on the basic like comic book television level, it changed the game for superhero, this genre on the small screen. I always said that like Marvel's killing it on TV now, but I don't think there would have been a space like that if it wasn't for shows like Arrow and The Flash that opened that door in the first place. Um, I know as a fan of it, I have loved this show through the highs and the lows, and I don't want to imagine my life without it. I love this show with every fiber of my being, and Grant Gustin changed my life. You guys know that. The Flash changed my life, and I know we can circle back to this and toast it later, but what a journey it was. I'm glad I got to be on it with you two as well. The three of us roasting it and criticizing it, but also loving it in our own way over this last year and a half on this podcast has been a joy as well. The Flash has been such a presence in so many people's lives, and I don't want that to get lost in it, even if the final few seasons were a little rough. Yeah, it was a game changer, and we love it dearly despite its flaws.
And the amazing thing, in the bittersweetness, like the amazing thing about a long running show ending is after you've lived through it, you get to live with it now. Like it's part of your life now. And that's something that I know when shows end, we're always sad and people get really sad. They're like, no, I don't want it to go. But it's something that I always hold on to with my favorite shows. Like it ended, I lived through it. That has like a negative connotation. Like we lived through it, man. We lived through it. But like you watch every season, like every week, but now it gets to be a part of your life. Like Michael said, it's the furniture. It's the lamp you turn on when you need it. So.
And it's what we experienced while we were watching it. Like I do feel like live through it can come off negative, but we mean it positively. Like there's just so many, like there are certain seasons where you knew where you were emotionally or what was changing in your life. And this may have been the show that was getting you through. It might have been the thing that was making you laugh or smile or believe in the goodness of people. And I feel like The Flash, over the years, we've had more and more to criticize about it. But it would never stop being that show that felt like coming home in a way. Like you
guys wouldn't still be here if you didn't love it.
Yeah. And so it's time to say goodbye. Like even with those feelings of, oh, I don't want to say goodbye. It's more of just a reaction to knowing that you're going to be moving forward without it. But it's time. It is time to let them go forward and revel in the memories that we do have and be excited for what's next for them or even what's next for us in our television lives and superhero TV. I'm just so grateful that I got to experience The Flash, like that I was, alive and, thinking about television shows when it was airing all the way through. It's just incredibly important to me, I feel like, in my development and growth. And it's one of those like top tier shows for me that I just know help shape who I am as a person.
Yeah, 100%. The Flash taught us to keep running, and we will, and it'll be part of our lives as we do it. Heck, do you know what? Let's just do the toast now. I feel like we're not going to get more poetic than that. So, to The Flash.
To The Flash.
Okay.
Moving towards Superman and Lois, one of the last standing DC TV shows on the CW. Hopefully we get to keep it or it moves to Max, putting that into the universe right now, manifesting that, because season 3 is rather solid. Like episode 9 Could have been better. I think unfortunately, if you chop the kids out, it's a really, really great episode. If you keep the kids in, it's a little middling. But the Lois plot continues to serve.
It really does. I'm There are never enough scenes that just show what a powerhouse Bitsy Tulloch is. And I feel like seeing so many shows like this would skip over important moments like this, but everything we saw Lois go through in this episode, the fact that it was called The Dress, the episode's primary storyline was not John Henry Irons and what was going on with Bruno Mannheim. It was about what Lois was feeling, her fears over her battle with cancer, and how that might lead to her mastectomy, and how that might impact her mental health. And I just was in awe of that storyline because these were conversations that I don't think are had enough on television. And it was just so powerful. I feel like I'm going to use that word a lot. It was very powerful storytelling. And I know the fact that she didn't want to hold on to the dress and that she was being a bit abrupt with Clark. Obviously, he knew something was wrong, but it was also very important, I think, that it was Lana who had the conversation with her in the end. And we've always said how the Lois and Lana friendship is one of the best but also untapped parts of the show. And I think to finally bring it back here and have that conversation, you didn't actually get to see them speak that much, but the fact that it was Lana who had that conversation with her and the snippets that you saw, that's not the kind of conversation that would be had in a show like this. So we talked about how like the Flash is revolutionary and how the Flash changes the game, but Superman and Lois is doing things out here that nothing in the genre has ever dared to do before. And I just thought that was such an incredible scene. It was also they were such important character moments for Lois and Lana as well. And just to see two women bonding over such a real life thing in such a super show, if you will, it was just, I think, revolutionary.
Mm. What's special about the way that they're doing this storyline is that it doesn't feel exploitative.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is a chance for the characters to have real, honest conversations that people do have in real life, and to balance everybody's emotions. Like, I loved the subtlety of Tyler Hoechlin's performance in this episode, playing a husband who is hurt by his wife's decision to get rid of a dress that is important to both of them, but also trying to leave space for how she feels. And then Bitsy is doing wonderful work as a woman who is going through this, and she knows that she's going through it with her family, but it is happening to her. And I loved that Lana got to acknowledge that for her. Like, it is you going through this with your family, but this is your body, and your body is set to change, and how you see yourself is going to change. And I like that Lois was concerned about her mental health, was concerned about how she would see herself, was concerned about how Clark would see her, even how she knows her husband, and that wouldn't be a thing for him. It is still a massive change. Like, a mastectomy is going to, some people, when it's not you, you're like, well, it's about her health. Like, yes, but it's also her body image. It's how she conceives of herself. Like, to be a woman, like she said, to have felt like she finally came in to liking her body. Like, she's gone through so many things as an adult woman, and and sometimes pregnancies can be traumatic too. Like, to go through giving birth to her twins, the changes her body would have gone through there, now the changes her body is going through because of cancer. And she's like, it never ends. It's always something. We're always going through pain in some capacity as women. And now I have to have this life-altering surgery to save my life. And it's just unfair. But still trying to find something to grasp onto, to not lose herself in the grief of this change that is coming.
Mm-hmm. And I think that was also important, that it kind of justified that it was her point of view and how she saw herself, which is why it was important, I think, to flash back to the time she wore the dress. Believe it was 17 years ago, because she said she'd never felt more beautiful in that moment. And it wasn't about the fact that she was the great Lois Lane or that she won an award. It was about the fact that she personally said she'd never felt more beautiful than she did in that moment, which is why she wanted to get rid of the dress, because she felt like she'd never feel like that ever again. And I thought that was so poignant because we know Clark will always see her the same. We know that everyone around her is there for her and loves her. But it was very much important that Lois feel heard in this episode because she had some concerns, and it's always justified when it's how you feel. And like you said, Sabrina, she's going through it. Of course, the other people are going through it with her, but it's happening to her. And she will be the one obviously most changed by this experience. So I thought that was such an important, and it felt so subtle in the way they did it. You could see that something was bothering Lois, but the fact that Clark didn't get it right away, Lana did get it right away. It was just, I thought it was such an expert example of that, and you can understand why she's feeling that way. And I think that was such like authentic, again, human and powerful kind of storyline to adapt, because when you look at what else is going on in the episode, and then we just have these long conversations about how this woman's feeling and how what's happening in her life is really affecting her. I thought it was beautiful.
It's just so good. I'm saying they're just this. Superman and Lois is just intelligent, like
Very much so.
on like especially emotionally intelligent. Lois has this great line where she says she felt, beautiful, like she felt like a woman because she was being acknowledged for her mind. And then she also looked gorgeous. Like it was very much like you said, it lived with her. This was all about how she felt, how she saw herself in that moment, and how that was wrapped in her perception of the dress and perception of herself, and being able to take ownership of that. But I also like that when she had her alone scene with Clark, where they were talking about, I need you. Like, I love that you love me like this. I love that your love for me and your attraction to me isn't just how I look. But we also have to acknowledge that it's going to be weird. Like, if we could just acknowledge that it's going to be different, that would really be important to me. They also talked about intimacy. Like, I was wondering where they were going with that when she, didn't want him to kiss her. And she's like, I don't feel good because she doesn't feel like a woman now. She's barely feeling like a person. She's so sick all the time. Like, she's just existing. And she's like, that is a big part of our life, though. Like, intimacy is a big part of our marriage. We have to discuss this. But then she tried. She's like, you want to cuddle? And they cuddle up on the bed together. And I'm just like, best written married couple on the CW right now. Like, they've taken the crown for me. There is no one doing it with the marrieds like Superman and Lois.
They are perfect. And my goodness, that final scene when she put the dress back on and they danced in the sky. Beautiful. I have no words to describe that. I could feel myself getting emotional as soon as the music started. I thought it was just an absolutely incredible moment, not just for the storyline or where they were, just even out of context. That is such a beautifully shot, beautifully acted, and heartfelt moment. And you're right, Sabrina, nobody does it like this. Just the show, the writing, it was all beautiful. And I think that perhaps that might have been my favorite standalone moment the show ever produced. I just thought it was wonderful, and there wasn't a single cape in sight. I think that's the beauty of the show.
It is, which means that we now have to talk about things that were not so beautiful.
Yeah.
Which was honestly, the Bruno part with the adults was fine. Like, I was getting angry at John Henry, but it made sense for him to be very emotional about what's going on with Bruno because he is threatening his family in a very serious way. I love that he called the alternate Earth sister his sister. He's like, he threatened my sister. I was like, oh, she's your sister now? Okay. Like, I want to see the Wonder Twins. Y'all better be building up to that because that's what it feels like where it's going. And I love that he's like juxtaposed to Clark. Clark being Clark is like, I know that he's a terrible person, but his wife is literally dying. And yes, is like what I'm going through with Lois factoring into my decision making on this. Sure. But at least I'm acknowledging that. You are not acknowledging that you are upset because of all that he's done in your life. I really appreciated that. I didn't appreciate the teens because they're like sitting on this Romeo and Juliet storyline that's just not earned. And no one's talked about the elephant in the room. We know that Mateo wasn't planted to try to get information on John through Natalie. They don't know that. So I'm like, where none of y'all gonna talk about how this boy could actually be manipulating her in any capacity? Am I just being paranoid? Like, maybe, but I feel like you need a paranoid friend. Someone needs to be like, girl, I'm skeptical. I don't know. It just like it just lining up too perfectly for me.
It was a little bit like rushed, I thought. The fact is, if they want us to root for Natalie at Mateo, and that's fine. We are rooting for Natalie at Mateo, but and we know Sabrina said not me. But it just felt like rushed. I don't know other way to put that. Like they were like, these people have seen each other maybe 3 times. We're like, I love you too. And I mean, like, it was such a big dramatic moment that you would expect, but I just felt like the background storylining was not here. And the reason we knew Mateo was a heart of gold is because now I feel like we're going to be moving into a territory where he might not be, because now he knows what his daddy's up to, and now he knows that they stand a chance of saving their mom, and now he knows that Bizarro Superman is down in that bunker or train station, whatever. So I feel like Mateo could end up getting roped in, and the fact that him and Natalie have made up now makes him quite dangerous. So I feel like maybe we are going somewhere with that. I do agree. I do feel like the teen aspect of this episode slightly let it down this week, and that's not something the show tends to do. Our frenemy, Sarah, is far more tolerable these days. They're really having her be the voice of reason. I mean, this is a Sarah from season 1. Where have you been for the last 2 years? That was nice to say. Lots of potential in there, but I agree. I feel like the teen aspect was definitely the weakest part of this episode thus far.
And we have to sit in some of that a little bit later, because Jordan had that. Who was it? Natalie was like, imagine not being able to be. No, Sarah said, imagine not being able to be with the person that you love. And Jordan had whatever line that was clearly shady, and it was about his love for Sarah. And I was like, oh, not us going back there again. It got so awkward.
It did. And then when Jonathan left, she was like, what do I do now? Because she was just left with them. We know they've bestied them up, but we know they're going to get back together at some point. This is what these shows do, and that stone is not going to remain unturned. So it makes sense for it to come back up. I just hope that we don't go back to Jordan and Sarah conflict, and we actually start making some progress with them.
One more point though about Superman and Lois, because there isn't really a lot in this episode to talk about besides, what the gorgeous Lois fought, the progression they had on Bruno. But I don't know how y'all felt about the very sticking line about John Henry killing someone. I did not care, but the show wants me to care. And I felt like him killing someone is not surprising, especially when the person had already been dead. But even if that was not the case, he was getting thrown all up and down Smallville. What did you want him to do about the gentleman who was definitely trying to kill him on behalf of Bruno? Like, he was an assassin sent by a kingpin to kill John Henry. They're like, oh my God, he killed someone. I'm like, yep, sure did. Can we move on?
Yeah, I feel like John Henry was definitely doing too much in that episode. He was acting out of character, and they wanted us to acknowledge that, and we did. He escalated that whole situation when he did not have to. There was definitely a middle ground, and the fact that Bruno Mannheim, of all people, was willing to meet him on that middle ground showed that John Henry was actually the one acting a little bit out of order, even if his feelings were justified. So I feel like the whole him killing Adam Man in the end, or Henry Miller, whatever you want to call him killing him in the end was supposed to add to that. It's like, oh, John Henry's gone off the deep end. What are we going to do? But I do agree. Like, if that was Batman fighting a superpowered individual and he had to beat him by putting him down, nobody would be like, Batman broke his no-kill rule. Because what are you supposed to do? That man died 3 times already. He's not technically alive. And he was going to kill him. Like, he hit him with a hammer. So he died. Rest in peace and all that.
The first thing I've said this whole review is a laugh at him.
I don't. He. In the words of the Undertaker, rest in peace, move on, whatever. I don't. I cannot answer that.
They were so upset. I was like, okay, he's gone.
Rest in peace, Henry Miller. You're a classic Superman villain. You've probably overstayed your welcome now, considering you were like a nostalgic act in season 1. But yeah, I mean, like, God bless that man's family if they're still alive. But yeah,
I don't know.
John Henry did what he had to do, and I was rooting against that man for the whole episode. But in that moment, he did what he had to do, and he's still breathing. So Fair play to him.
And he looked cool doing it.
He
And
did.
it's
He
really
did.
great action sequence. I just need them to bring Lex now, though, because I feel like we're starting to languish in the Bruno plot. And I was like, move it forward now. Let's move, like, continue to move it forward. Because I guess with Henry Miller being gone, we'll have Lex and we'll have Bizarro, and we'll start, like, moving the train on. Because they have 15 episodes this season, right?
13, I think.
13? Oh, we only have 4 left? Yeah, move this train faster, please. I think
Yeah.
it's time to speed up.
Yeah, I'm eager to see where it goes because I know the previous 2 seasons pulled a twist midway through or towards the end where you find out that the bad guy actually had superpowers or that they weren't the villain all along, like with Bizarro, it turned into Ali Alston then. So is Lex going to be the main villain of the season? Is Bizarro going to come back? Is what can Bruno do now that he's been so overexposed in these last couple of episodes? I'm eager. There's still got a lot of in play, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of it. But I do agree, we're down to what 4 or 5 episodes left now. We could do with fastening it up a tiny bit just so that we don't feel shortchanged by the time the finale rolls around.
Fingers crossed they get on that. But moving to Nancy, which I think we should start with our Q&A because the fans have had some questions for us, and then we can launch into like fully into our spoiler-free review. Let me just refresh this just in case they asked anything else.
Sure.
As a note to those who are listening or watching, emphasis on the spoiler-free. There are things that we cannot talk about, and there are things that we won't talk about because it'd be better if you watched it. In context, it'll just be that much more thrilling. So we will be giving you tasters, like those little before the pandemic when they had those little meat on the toothpick, and you went about your business. After you got that, that is what this is right now.
Your toothpick's ready. We're circulating the meatballs.
Yes. Okay, so we're gonna start with Nabrina's Moon, who asked, "What is Nace and Ace's new love interest like?" So Ace's love interest is not in this episode. Nancy's is. We can say he's not like any other love interests that she's had before.
I like him.
He's nice, right?
I'm so afraid to say anything else.
Yeah. We're not good at these spoiler-free reviews.
Well, okay, I would say that it doesn't start the way people probably think it will start. And we're not going to give away who he is. You're just going to have to watch the episode. But it's not... He has a connection to them in some capacity that is not what you'd read in the synopsis of the of season 4. Don't leave it
like you
right
said,
there.
This is a different kind of, I guess, secondary love interest is what we're going to call her other guys from past seasons. It's different, and I like mixing it up. It's not the same old archetype because we've had that like 2 seasons where over the. But did we say this before? Where a lot of her secondary love interests were kind of cut from the same cloth. This is an interesting. I don't know. I like it.
Right?
I don't want to say anything else.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Hansy Drew asked, "How good is the Nace? Is it breadcrumbs or full meals?" It's we have a whole picnic spread. I'm just gonna say like it just smorgasbord.
The days of subtleness is in the past. We know you could go into the season blindfolded, obviously, and know that we're going to be getting more Nace this time around because they finally addressed the elephant in the room that's been running on throughout the show for the last 3 seasons. The elephant is in full view. Everybody can see the elephant. And I will say, I feel like that elephant is going to be stampeding across the season.
For sure.
I ran with that metaphor.
I wouldn't call what we got in this episode a meal, but it's a charcuterie board.
Love that too.
We're all into metaphors.
Right, and then let's see. Oh, I can't see her full. Oh, Ships in Love 3. If you could describe the premiere in 3 episodes, what 3 episodes in 3 words, what would they be?
I like this. Okay, I would say focused, mature, and spooky.
Ooh. Spooky was on my list as well.
Well, like it's a given, but I feel like it's this is more than 3 words, but a little bit more spooky like it used to be.
Mhm.
Season 3 had some spooky, but there were jump scares.
Colorful, ambitious, and fun.
Like that. Okay. Heartfelt, unexpected. I don't know what my third one would be. I'm trying to. It took like such good ones. Gorgeous. I think it's shot really well. We'll just say that it's has some very nice shots.
Yes.
And then Detective Mode On asked, could you describe Nace in the premiere in a non-spoilery way?
Can we?
Did my elephant metaphor not do that?
I think
non-spoilery.
yearning. That is full on display for sure.
There's movement.
Yeah.
Positive movement. Is that too much? Oh, I'm scared.
Awkward. I would say that they're awkward.
And I will say it's present. I know a lot of season premieres tend to not address a lot of the questions that were left off. I will say I'm not going to say anything about the content of it, but I will say it's there. It's a presence, and that was a pleasant surprise.
Going back to one of my words, focused. It feels like this season, this final season, they know what they want to accomplish in these 13 episodes, and they aren't wasting time. And I will not throw shade on another show that didn't do that.
Oh, whatever could you mean?
I have no idea.
And I do want to say we've had a pretty flawless journey with Nancy Drew, but I will say we probably struggle the most a little bit with season 3. This feels like a throwback right to the very beginning. I felt like the show kind of relaunched itself. And that's what I mean also when I say it was colorful. It just, between the way it was shot, it's not dull looking anymore, which is nice. Between the way it was shot and the way it felt and the way the characters behaved and just the sense of community of it, it feels like the Nancy Drew of old. And I love it when a show rediscovers itself in its final season. And I think that's what we're getting right here.
I grappled with one of my words to describe it as grounded, because it does feel so grounded in its identity again, whereas season 3 tried some different things to varying success levels. It just feels so much more grounded in what this show does best. So I added a 4th word, grounded.
Okay. And then Girl Meets Delana. Describe the episode in emojis. I believe there was another tweet like this. So let's just do like the 3 emojis.
3 emojis. That little blue and yellow guy that looks like Ghostface that has the hands up to the face in shock is one.
I'd say broken heart for sure.
I'm going to say the smirk emoji.
I was gonna say that too. Yeah. Okay. We all picked an emoji.
Yeah,
that's good.
I think that's works.
That's good. You're trying like so hard. Like, don't break the embargo. Okay. And also that same Twitter user asked, is there a reason Ace isn't dressed up in a suit for the party? Yes. Not going to give you the reason.
You'll find out on premiere night.
Yes. And then Nancy Drew _crew wants to know what the overall vibe of the premiere is. I feel like we described it as like to just take elements of what we've already spoken about. Definitely gives season 1 vibes in terms of quality. It is honestly, it is a good time. Like I don't like it. Just really, it truly is fun. It's a really fun premiere.
It's energetic. They hit the ground running.
Yeah, and it even though they're dealing with a somewhat darker storyline, which Nancy Drew always does, but it doesn't feel like it lacks the fun. And I do feel like season 3 lacked a little bit of fun. This feels almost whimsical. There's like a lightness to it as well. There's a funness to it as well. And I think that's what made that balance makes Nancy work so well. And again, I think it was slightly missing in season 3. This one episode, I feel like it's rediscovered all of that. I said it before, but this feels like a Nancy Drew episode from season 1 or 2, and we all know how much we love those.
It's snappy too. Like watching the characters move about her Shubei on, can't give the plot away, on what they have to do. Like it's just, they're like firing on all cylinders. Like we're really in a good place as the Drew crew. I'm so happy to see everybody again. When you watch the premiere, it's like, it's infectious. It's when everybody watches it, when it premieres on Wednesday, May 31st at 8 p.m. ET on the CW, is going to be just really, it's going to be lovely seeing the fandom go up during this episode. And it is all through the episode that y'all are going to be yelling and screaming and laughing and having fun with all of the characters. Like they just truly built it out in a way that should be satisfying.
And I said this to you guys when I was watching. Nancy gets to be just an absolute menace. Just so funny again. And I feel like we can talk about this because it's not a spoilery scene, and the photo literally was released beforehand. The scene where Nancy peeks out of the wall. We've seen everybody's seen the picture, the meme. It's a meme now. Kennedy used it on her Instagram. This is going to be Kennedy praise before the season has even premiered publicly. The way that she can make that scene funny, but not like Disney Channel slapstick, which that's no hate on Disney Channel, because that's a whole different kind of acting that I think is important and necessary, just to be silly and fun and over the top. But the way that she made that particular moment funny, but also not overdoing it with like eyes that are like moving around. She's just like does her funny Nancy thing, and then she keep like I don't know how Kennedy balances it, but I mean, just gear up for 13 weeks of us praising Kennedy, because it's gonna happen.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's in the small moments too. Like it's that moment you mentioned, and then there's another one where she's facing off against somebody, and then her reaction afterwards when she gets what she wants is hilarious. It's like the smallest little moment. She just goes right on. It's so good. It's such a great premiere.
It is. She's so quirky, and I feel like Kennedy's having the time of her life. I always feel like that, but I feel like it comes across even more in this season, and I really can't wait to see where it goes.
Oh no. Okay. Next question. Mads a Million wants to know what's been our favorite season or episode, and then she has a follow-up question that I'll wait to say after we answer.
I think my favorite season was 1. I mean, pending 4. We'll see how this shakes out. Favorite episode. Oh, I know we've had a bunch, but I can't remember which ones I said I loved. I think the one when she helps the college girls, I remember really liking.
Yeah.
I don't know. You guys probably have better memory than me.
This is the problem with watching things too close together. I was going to say something incredibly similar to that, Reed, in that my favorite season is by far season 1, and I was thinking about what my favorite episodes were, and I don't remember enough of one specific one. I remember so many wonderful moments from the show in general, but I think most of them are from season 1. So I'm just going to say any season 1 episode I would happily rewatch. It sounds like such a basic answer, but at least I've been somewhat specific. Yeah. Any episode from season 1, give me any episode from season 1, and I'd pick that as my favorite episode. I just thought that show was of such a high standard, and it still is, but season 1 was something else completely.
I am on the season 1 train. That is my favorite season as well. I don't know episode numbers or titles, but I can give you the plots. And so I think that's how the fans they'll just tell me. They'll tell us in the comments. But I generally love the episodes in which Nancy has a lot of growth. So the one where we went into the mental hospital, and she wakes up and she's going through like what her life could have been. Love that episode. I love the episode where she's talking about, well, she's interacting with all of her younger selves, the very important traumatic pieces that she is dealing with and healing from. Love the Detective Con episode. I really do. It's so fun. And the one where Ace's life is in danger, in season 2, when she is just willing to give up whatever information that she needs to give up in order to save him. I adore that episode as well. I feel like there's one more that is just like it's there somewhere and I just can't grasp it.
I love the one where they were locked in the police station.
Yeah,
that was season 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that one was really good.
Another one I just remembered, I think it was in the season 2 finale where Nancy was in like the dream sequence with all the other versions of her.
When she held herself.
Yeah, when she held herself and her and Ace were so close. I remember thinking that was really like goosebump inducing moment. It had me so excited for season 3. I thought that was one. This show I'm used to being stunned by, but that was one episode that specifically stood out. So it's pretty funny I'm picking a season 2 one over any from season 1. But sometimes that's exactly what happens. Season 1 as a whole could have produced any phenomenal episode, but that season 2 finale sticks out to me. So I think I'll go with that one.
We'll have to do like a Nancy send-off reflection episode after it ends and talk about our favorite episodes and our favorite things from the show. I mean, the CW is not going to give them retrospective. We might as well do it.
Yeah,
that's true, and we would be excellent at it.
Yes, we would.
I just remember though the police station episode is season 2 because Tamora is in it.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
I'll just speak for myself. I do not have a favorite season 3 episode. Season 3 is down that bad for me. I have favorite season 3 moments, I believe.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the follow-up question was, do you think that this episode, meaning the premiere, is a good setup for the final season / overall mystery? I would have to say yes.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Immediately yes.
Yeah. No hesitation was had. Yeah. That's a question we don't need to go into specifics. Without a doubt, yes, 100%. All
it's
of the above.
Strongest season opener since like season 2, because wasn't season 3 the opener with the hay maze and Penn and Teller?
Oh yeah, that was awkward and confusing. Yeah, not the premiere as a whole, just that opening.
Yeah.
Like as I said, like this is focused, hit the ground running. They know what they're doing. They have a game plan. Again, I'm not going to shade any other shows.
Okay. And then Simona_HR has 2 questions as well. Will there be more than one scene between Nancy and Ryan? Yes.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Cannot elaborate further than that. But yes.
Yeah.
Well, I guess not to give a plot. There is a funny moment that like is just top of the episode. We'll not say what it is, but it's a really great scene and just absolutely fantastic. Love when they get to do comedic beats.
And there's an emotional one. I don't know if that's giving anything away, but
yes.
And then it ends up being funny because Nancy's a menace.
Yes. And then the follow-up question, the second question was, will Nancy wear a scarf in episode 1? Which I cannot remember. She has fantastic outfits.
Yeah, the next episode. Scarf I don't think is present, and I don't think this isn't a spoiler because it was in one of the stills from the episode. Beanie.
Yeah, the Beanie's back.
Beanie is accounted for.
Beanie watches back on track. Though when we do our spoiler review, there's nothing to say about Beanie Watch other than she's present. She's back.
But I will say that scene itself, I'm not going into what it was, but that scene where she wore the beanie could have been ripped from season 1. That's what I love about a final season. It feels like we've gone back to the beginning. Excellent scene just for on an aesthetic standpoint. Absolutely loved it.
Yes, so good. Okay, and Muffy_Simba wants to know our thoughts on another tired love triangle in the final season of only 13 episodes.
You know, I was going to be there with them on this, just hearing before the season premiered from the synopsis that there was going to be another one. I was like, oh, not you. Not, I can't do this again. But after watching the episode, so far, I mean, we still have 12 more weeks. I don't mind it. because this is giving away. I mean, it seems like it's going to be. I don't know. I'm not going to finish that sentence.
I don't, watching the premiere didn't make me hate it.
Mm-mm.
Like, it makes sense context wise.
It does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're just like, okay, cool. Like you know what's set to happen, but like this little detour for whatever it is makes sense for her. It does.
I think I'm more willing to accept it knowing like what the thesis of the season seems to be.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not concerned about it. That's why I think I'm like, sweet, I will have fun until, we get into the nitty gritty.
And yeah, I'm with where you guys are as well. And when I seen it on paper, I was like, do we need to do this in the final season? Because again, not to share that other show, it does feel like doing too much with only 13 episodes on paper. But so far, the execution of this is stronger than that other show would have handled it. So yeah, I do think it's not as unnecessary as it sounded on the synopsis. So I'm eager
there's
to
a
see where it goes.
reason. There's a reason for it.
Yeah.
And there will be a reason, which we can't elaborate on once again, but
but I not that I appreciate it. What was I going to say? Oh, that it's here, since it's going to be here, that it's fine. Like, it's just nope, not gonna say that. And then the handle is a bunch of letters. Sabetta, we're gonna go with the name in the handle. Wants to know how many new characters appear in the season premiere. 2.
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mind either of them.
So far, so good.
I mind one of them.
I know which one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know. It wouldn't be a spoiler to mention who that person is, but y'all should just wait. See what goes down in the premiere with the said person. And then that same user wants to know, is the party a celebration of Horseshoe Bay?
No.
Mm-mm.
Well,
indirectly.
Adjacent.
Yeah.
But this isn't a spoiler to say, like, it's Bess hosting it?
I don't think that. No, it's not a spoiler, so we can just. It's fine.
Yeah, I didn't elaborate. I just think it's Party Girl Bess is back.
And like it follows in the footsteps of some of the other Nancy Drew celebrations we've seen throughout the show. So I don't know whether that's just me being secretive or whatever, but yeah, it's this is not the first time you've seen this kind of celebration on the show before. So yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll have one more thing to say about it though. I love that we're back to traditions.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Love a good tradition in this.
I think that's the word I was looking for. Yes,
I know exactly. When shows are like they host like a party in an episode and they make you feel like it. They say like, "Oh, this is annual," and you're like, "This is the first time I've heard about it." I love that. I love it so much. Heart of Dixie did that all the time. They're like, "Oh yeah, this is our annual pirate festival," and they did it one time.
Well, to be fair, all of Nancy Drew happens across like a month and a half, so we haven't made it through the full year yet. That's true. They have a lot of traditions in that short amount of time.
Okay, and last question. Tucker Ross Khan wants to know, there's 2 questions here. Is most of the first episode focused on the curse, or are there other villains / major storylines?
Other storylines.
Yeah, I mean, we know what it is from season 3 finale.
Mm-hmm. I don't think this was in the embargo, so I'll just throw a little teaser out there. It's 5 weeks after what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we finally had some movement on Nancy Drew that wasn't just one day. The timeline is now shifting. We finally jumped ahead a little bit.
Yes.
And I appreciated the last time they did like a slight time jump. There was so much exposition to fill in the gaps, and it was clunkier. This felt seamless.
Mm-hmm. It did. It was so
very
good.
much so.
And it's just enough time where things, of course, happened in between it, but it doesn't feel like you said, they got to give us a whole book about what was going on in those weeks. And then the final part, they had said, I feel bad for Park, and I hope he's in the first episode. I love Park too, but Homeboy's not here.
Where did we end up with him in season 3 finale? I don't even remember.
So they forgot about him. In one of the dream sequences, he says goodbye to Nancy. But when we do that again in the real world, he is not there.
Oh, yeah.
So
goodbye. You were bigger than the whole sky.
So if anyone was holding out for closure with his character, not even just with Nancy, just in general, he has moved on to other pastures. They did not say where. He's just not here.
The actor was in the last thing he told me. That's probably what he was up to.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at his IMDb and fill in the gaps.
Other things happening. It's fine.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, anybody who was looking forward to Park. I have no idea if
not
he's
yet
in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not yet, at least.
Yeah, and I don't see where he would fit, considering
it's unnecessary. Like we've been saying, like the season has a mission statement, and they're pedal to the metal so far.
Yeah, he's a highlight of season 3, though, and I will always love him forever for that.
We thank him for his contributions.
Yes. Just to say, I'm gonna be bold and say that the Nancy Drew season 4 premiere is the strongest premiere of the 2022-2023 CW television season. To me,
I agree with you there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
You seem hesitant.
I think in which episodes did I enjoy? I mean, the only one in the competition is Superman and Lois, let's be honest. So yeah, if they're both on par with each other, I'm fine with that, because Nancy Drew is just high standard day in and day out, episode in and episode out. And I know we think it had a little tiny bit of a drop in season 3, but this feels like a comeback on all senses of the word. I'm super excited. I've never been more excited about this show. And I'm also super frustrated that this is the first time we can't just click on to the next episode.
I know.
True. And we have to wait. But good thing we don't have to wait too much longer. Because again, it is premiering Wednesday, May 31st at 8 p.m. ET on the CW. If you cannot watch live, it'll be available on the CW app and CWTV.com the following day. Watch Nancy, love her, praise her, tag all the actors in your praise. It's the final season.
Tell everyone about it.
Yes. Okay, well, unless we wanted to share a little bit more spoiler-free review style things, I think we're done.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I feel like there's so much that I want to say, but there's so much that we can't say.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really good.
Yeah.
It is.
Worth the wait for everybody that had to wait since 2022, January.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's how long they waited?
So I know there was someone throughout like 400 and something days.
But it is worth it. Yeah.
Because the show was renewed in March, so yeah, it would have ended before that, so it would have been around then. And yeah, I agree. I feel like when we were answering all the questions, I thought maybe I'd have more to say, but I think we did a good job of answering all of the questions, but also adding our own thoughts and teasing what's to come. I've said it 3 or 4 times already. I really enjoyed the premiere, and I can't wait to see where the season goes. It feels like a return to form for the show. It's so good, so good.
Applause to them.
Oh, but we didn't even mention Nick, and I feel like we need to mention him. I just love where he's at in this episode.
He's sunny and bright, and he's doing so well. Like we glow up.
Confidence is back. Ugh.
What he deserves.
Yeah.
Also, another funny moment in the episode involves him and what they have to do to for this party. Oh, they I don't think this is only embargo, but fans who want some content. There is content for y'all in this episode. I would describe it as a much needed discussion.
Yeah,
that need to be had.
That's a very good way of putting it. Yeah.
In food terms, from crumbs to meals, I'd say like it's a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
The metaphors mean nothing, but take from what you will.
I'm sorry, we have been acing the metaphors. There's another one. We have been acing the metaphors with this conversation.
I mean, speaking of ace, prepare to be feral. I don't know. This whole episode is just like top to bottom, beginning to end. We're gonna be feral.
Okay, so when one of these moments happens in the premiere, I was like, Reed's gonna be bad. But I mean, it works. So sorry, well, for the A stands and in one aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we should stop now before we.
Yeah, let's do that before we're gonna get ourselves in trouble.
Okay, well, I believe that's it. What does the outline say? Yes, that is it for this episode of the CW Spiral, our farewell to the Flash, and a little tasty taste for the Nancy Drew crew.
Mm-hmm. Every end has a beginning. I'm super sad to see the Flash go, but also super excited for what's to come from Nancy Drew's final season.
And okay, well, we're the CW Spiral. I'm Sabrina.
I'm Michael.
And I read.